Hello.
Hi.
Hey, what's up, everyone? How we doing?
Hunter, nice chair.
It is pretty nice, actually. It's a rocking chair too, and I'm
Oh my
outside.
gosh.
Yeah, it's a nice spot. Good weather, no bugs. Austin. Marie, good job on your presentation earlier. It was like a better end review, and she reviewed the Basil stuff, and it was very exciting, very interesting. Okay, let me pull up the agenda, and then we can get started. Okay, I think we got quorum, so let's go ahead and kick it off. I'll share my screen. Does anyone have any announcements or anything before we get started? Cool. Okay, so I have, for the first time, all of the items are from me, so hopefully we can burn through these. I have put them in reverse order of importance, so that we can burn through the first couple and then leave time for discussion for the last couple. So the first is the Markdown lint CI check has been working for a while, but oh, is it already required? Great, okay. I made it unrequired recently because I was changing some stuff around to try and get the comments to work of like, if it fails, have a comment be automatically posted by the bot. So sounds good. I will go ahead and re-enable this, but all in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, passes. Accepted. Cool. Okay, I'll deal with that later. Next is Magma Tech Leads doc. Okay, so this was an ask from the community, well, indirectly from the community, where it was unclear who the point of contact should be for adding changes. So the TSC currently, as it currently exists, is not meant to be the root of every like proposed change to Magma, just for multi-component changes or long-term direction, or like changes that will have an impact on Magma. So if it's a single component, it needs to be a big change, or if it's multiple, or it could be multiple components. So the idea is, as much as possible for single component changes, we want to defer to the particular tech lead. And so that will just like reduce the cycle times for a lot of the interactions, for example, between Wave Labs and Magma. This is similar to how ONAP lists their project leads. We won't do it on per project, we'll do it on per component or per functionality. But in any case, this list mirrors what we have internally at Facebook, have previously propagated. So the last thing here is this concept is meant to be informal. It doesn't like editing the list of TLs doesn't require a vote. It's mainly for the purpose of better facilitating communication with the community. So yeah, we can pause there. Any input or discussion on this list or the general idea? Maria, it sounds like you might have a thought.
Oh, no. I had a thought, but then I thought it was a bad idea. But okay, I'll just say it anyways. But I was wondering if like now, like, should there be like a Slack channel for each of the like workspace so that like all questions can just go there? But then I thought, like having too many Slack channels is probably not a good idea. So I decided against saying it, but that was the thought I had.
We kind of implicitly have this right now. Like we have a platform channel where a lot of the orchestrator and NMS questions can go.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like that was one case where it's like actually actively used and useful, but I figured like having a specific FEG channel is probably not that useful.
Yeah, I think what we should do is keep that in mind as like an on-demand response. So if it turns into something where we feel like, okay, there's enough discussion within a particular component that isn't like on a per project channel basis or just like direct, then we could consider like, should we create a specific channel as like on a per component basis as it becomes valuable.
I think that's a good call.
Rather than sort of like a priori creating them and then trying to force people into using one of them. And the other thing to mention is, this isn't meant to be an exhaustive list of the TLs within the project. It's more meant to be like the entry points for each component. So, the idea being, if you want to learn more about how to either who you should get sign-offs from for the Access Gateway, or who you can go to for a particular question on the Access Gateway, Ulash might not be the best point of contact for that particular question, but he will be a good point of contact for recursively sending you to the right TL. Okay, any other thoughts or questions on this? And then we can take a vote. The outcome will be just posting this and publicizing it posting it on the docusource and publicizing it in the Slack. Cool. Okay, let's take a vote then. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right. All. Okay. Cool. Cool. That's 4 then, so passes. All right. Accepted. And I'll deal with the rest later. Okay. Update on the Magma Core Foundation Confluence. So had some discussions with Jessica and Aswin. And the overview of what we came out with is we have 3 concrete needs: user-facing documentation that goes through code review, contributor-facing documentation that has a bar to edit. That is optional, unclear whether that's the right move, but the main thing is that this should be versioned and this is unversioned and should be like immediately available to everybody. We could talk about the wiki style in terms of like, should it require a review? I am lightly in favor of it not requiring review for like code owners. So like if you're a code owner, you can make a change without a review. But anyways, we can talk more about it, the specifics. And then the third thing is collaboration hub. So like the central entry point to the Magma project if you're a contributor. So like hosting artifacts non-code artifacts. So like meeting and training recordings, meeting minutes and action items, and then partitioned by the working group. So like TSC versus outreach committee versus DevOps, things like that. So what we have landed on so far is the current iteration of this proposal is solution one, Docusaurus seems like a clear winner. That's what we're using right now for pretty much all of our external docs. So preserving this for the user-facing documentation. User-facing meaning like what are operators using? People who aren't contributing, or like when you're not contributing. The second is, or I'll go with the third next actually. We're interested in, no, I'll go with 2 seconds next. So GitHub Wiki was something that was proposed and the DevOps team is actively trying, my understanding is that they're actually actively transitioning toward. The benefit is we can attach the contributor docs directly to the relevant repo. They are immediately updated and there's like a lower barrier to editing. Like you can just edit it instead of having to go through a code review and get all the CI checks to pass and things like that. And because like contributors right now, if you want to update the docs, you have to like install you have to install Docker and ensure that it's working. And I've had people struggling to install Docker before, and then you have to understand like the full workflow and run doclint and stuff like that. This would just be, you hit edit, you type your changes, you hit save. Maybe we don't want it to be that simple, but this would be, that would be the benefit of this. And then third option is, or the third item is Confluence. Confluence is a clear winner for collaboration hub. We can host all of these things within our Confluence and we can partition it by working group. We also could move the contributor guide to Confluence, but it seems like there's some hesitation within the community, particularly, for example, from DevOps, that they don't want to use, that they are reticent to fully adopt Confluence. Phil brought this up though, that we could merge all the GitHub Wiki stuff into Confluence. So what I proposed is we start with using GitHub Wiki, and if it goes well, then if things go well with this transition, we can consider moving over to Confluence if people as people start using Confluence more, if it turns out that people are comfortable with it. Yeah, so short discussion on this. Any thoughts, inputs? The main changes would be contributor guide would go to GitHub Wiki, and then Confluence would take the place of our kind of like jumbled collaboration hub options.
Do we get like version control for GitHub Wiki, or?
My understanding is that you wouldn't.
In fact, it's a wiki. It's a Git repo by itself. That is so you do have some versioning. The things I see in other projects is that usually, I mean, wiki page, that are associated to a Git repo usually are more difficult to maintain in terms of if you have API updates and stuff like that. It's difficult to make them update, and the wiki page tends to become obsolete quite fast. I'm not saying that for the other one it's better. I mean, it's just my experience with wiki pages that are associated to a Git repo.
Yeah.
My second thought on Confluence is it normally a paid solution per user? That means that you have to be a registered user to contribute to Confluence, and in fact the solution you have to pay per user. I don't, that's the way I think it is about.
So my understanding is we'd receive this through LF, and that in order to edit it, you would have to be a registered. You would have to have an account registered through Linux Foundation.
That's correct. It doesn't cost any extra to the project.
Yeah, but you need to be registered. Okay. Okay,
yeah,
so that was
think,
my 2 points for me. Okay.
I think that's good input. So it's kind of this question then of like, where should we put the contributor facing documentation? Should it be in Confluence? Should it be in GitHub Wiki? Or should we just stay with what we're doing and leave it in the Docusaurus?
If it's in,
Hi,
Sorry.
Ildiko was about to speak, and I was just about to speak something for her, so I'll let her just speak.
okay, hi, it's Ildiko here. I'm shepherding a group, and we are trying to kind of enhance and improve and extend the current contributor documentation that lives in Docusaurus at this point. And we are trying to create a more extensive contributor guide. And in fact, our hope and wish is to not version the contributor guide, because whatever the community is doing and however the community is operating, that is always in the present. So there is really no reason to have a version of the contributor guide, because whatever is an old information, that is obsolete and it should not be there anymore. In that sense, our current aim is to move it out of Docusaurus and out of the versioned documentation, and whether it is GitHub Wiki or Confluence, that's kind of a question of which tool makes most sense and which is easier to set up the documentation, which will be more visible to people, for people to find. So that's kind of the basic idea.
I kind of view this pro and con. The benefit of moving it out is we remove the versioning. The benefit, but the con of moving it out is, you know, as Raphael mentioned, this propensity for wiki style documents to decay over time, decay in quality and like applicability to what they're referencing. So
I mean, I think the idea is to maintain the contributor guide, and whether it lives in the current Docusaurus or on a wiki, that is still the responsibility of every contributor to the project to keep it up to date. So in that sense, I'm not sure how much it matters where we are actually storing the source.
makes sense.
Yeah, I think my main take also is like, currently we do code reviews for all doc changes, and that actually does make a difference, what I found in the quality of the doc. So yeah, I mean, if we lose that, it's not a big deal. It's just like we would need some, you know, proactive monitoring of quality, I suppose.
That too, I'd say it's the pro and con of like code review puts a higher bar for people contributing to the onboarding for the contributor documentation, for example. Like it's you have to install stuff, you have to go through that code review process. So we probably get less documentation because of that, but also it's higher quality. So it just depends on which side of that trade-off we think is more valuable.
I think, if I may add, I don't want to make this a really long discussion. On one hand, I did set up kind of a short poll-ish question in the contributing Slack channel, just to ask people if they prefer to keep the code review style of building the contributor guide. And so far, everybody who voted said no. On the other hand, I think it's probably a good idea to choose a tool where we have a history. So if GitHub Wiki has a Git repo behind it, then it's probably a better choice, just so that we kind of can follow what changed. and what happened and revert in case there's something, I don't know, weird appearing in the documentation. However, I think personally that it will be kind of a heavy lift to restructure what we have currently and extend it to a contributor guide. But once we have it, we only need to update if there is a process change or, you know, something changed that new contributors or sometimes even established contributors need to be able to keep informed about. So I don't think that the contributor guide will receive that many updates compared to the regular deployment guide and operations and those kind of docs.
I would push back on that a little bit. I do envision it changing, fluidly as the process changes over time. Probably much less than it has changed the first, year of Magma Core Foundation's existence. But I'd be surprised if our processes stayed static over time. But in any case, I think it's still.
I'm not saying that it's static, but like, for instance, the OpenStack community has a quite big, extensive contributor guide, and I happen to be contributing that too, and just kind of overseeing it a little bit. And like compared to the more I don't know, user operator facing install guide, deployment guide, operations guide type of documentation, the contributor guide changes much less. I mean, it's all
we do need to move on
to the code review part.
Yeah, cool. So I think what we can do for this is we can have further discussion offline if we need. Phil, I see that you have your hand raised. If it's okay with you, can you after the fact, can you put a comment in the TSC channel?
Hunter, if you will, I mean, 10-second comment.
Okay, go ahead.
When we talk about the need for code review or reviews on these docs, do remember these aren't functional documentation that we're talking about. It is more of a process document, and I think
Makes
that
sense.
changes the perspective. So.
Cool. So yeah, but what I'm thinking is I'm leaning toward we can go for the wiki style as an experiment, and if it goes well, great. If not, we can always revert. And then, but the next step is Jessica's going to bring this to the DevOps meeting, and we'll have some more info on how they feel about it at that point. Okay, so let's see. Okay, the next thing is path to code ownership. Let's try and spend like 2 or 3 minutes on this, and then we can get to the last thing. So the idea here is we just want to make the path to from being a contributor to a code owner slightly more explicit. Right now, it's just you have to be nominated by a code owner. So this is just the initial text. We don't have to vote on this today, but this is the initial text that I wrote up as something that I thought would be reasonable, given kind of like to codify the implicit patterns that we have gone with so far over the last year. Solution, solid contributions history, code review. So, you've contributed code PRs yourself, you've reviewed other people's PRs. It's clear that you are like an owner in some form, that like you're not just reviewing PRs, but you're like reviewing them because you're providing useful insight. And then you're also like, and so that's like, this is more current facing, and this is more future facing. So how should this component evolve? So the bar isn't you need to be ATL. The bar is just like you're demonstrating some of these too through code review and contributions. Yeah, and again, also this is not this is not meant to be like letter of the law, because you could do all of these things but not actually be an effective code owner, and also vice versa. You could be an effective code owner without, in practice, you could be a de facto code owner without doing, meeting the bar in all of these areas. So, yeah, thoughts on this list? We don't have to vote today.
I would
actually go ahead.
I would my quick feedback is I would explicitly note to this that there is no need to meet all these criteria necessarily, because I think in the typical I'm not qualified feelings of many people, like they may look at this full list and say I don't do all these things, I won't apply for the job kind of thing.
Makes sense. Okay, so yeah, what we can do for this is if you have thoughts or opinions, throw them in comments here, and then I will iterate on this, and then ideally 2 weeks from now we can vote on this and add it to the Docusaurus as the new process. Okay, last thing is, okay, explicit process / timing for TSC elections. So right now we kind of just, we don't specify much info on like when and or how TSC elections should occur. And so I'll go through it and like pull out more explicit info from here on like what we are missing and what we need to provide. But I guess the initial, what I wanted to get from here is just like any initial discussion. Maybe Phil could start us off as well, given that it looks like he's the author. What's the intended, or conceptually, what are we looking, what's the desired mechanism that we would use to handle elections and things like that?
Yeah, I think the process is more around ensuring that the TSC is refreshed effectively. We have a little bit of a problem with the way that we started because everyone was elected at the same time, and technically, you know, we have a set term of 1 year unless we have resignations along the way, and everybody's going to get reelected to be a brand new TSC all at the same time. And we probably need to think of a way to stagger that more effectively. But the intent was just to make sure that the TSC is enduring, to give a process for replacing members as their term expires or if they resign, and just to lay out the voting process. It wasn't intended to be super structured in advance to let the foundation take its own personality, if you will.
Yeah, definitely, that makes sense. So as far as like this particular next like 2 minutes, let's say, what I'm planning on doing is I'll write out how could this specifically look and bring it as a proposal 2 weeks from now. But does anyone have initial input that either we want to talk about now, or we can send in the TSC chat? Thoughts on how this should look practically? Okay, that's fine. I think the vibe I get then is that, you know, we just want some clear mechanism for both timing wise and sort of underlying voting process for how this should look. I'll turn this into a proposal and we can have concrete discussions about it 2 weeks from now. Okay, we made it through everything. Ran out of time a little bit for discussion on the last 3 items, but that's okay. I think, yeah, for this one, we have a clear next step, and definitely put additional comments on the proposal. Same thing for this, and then this one I'll turn into a concrete proposal. Cool. All right, well, I'll cut it off there. Thanks everyone for meeting in, and if we have any follow-ups, throw them in the TSC Slack channel, and we can go from there. All right, thanks y'all.
Bye.